TIL that Ted Kaczynski, better known as the Unabomber, received an invitation in 2012, while incarcerated at ADX Florence, to his Harvard graduating class's 50th anniversary reunion. He RSVPed, noting his occupation as prisoner and his 8 life sentences as awards. Recommend reading the book Harvard and the Unabomber, fascinating story, albeit heartbreaking. Removed. SNL did a sketch about this years ago where Will Ferrell plays Kaczynski in shackles going to a school reunion. I saw an alumni news bulletin once while going through a stack of files to organize, and there was a list of alumni who died recently, and one included a guy executed by the state of Oklahoma. In the 1960s there was a young man that graduated from the University of Michigan, did some brilliant work in mathematics, specifically bounded harmonic functions. Then he went on to Berkeley. He was assistant professor. Showed amazing potential. Then he moved to Montana, and blew the competition away. Not sure if it's true, but I heard that he had a much easier time adapting to life in the ADX than most inmates. The security is so high that he was alone all the time. However, he prefers that and often went months or years without any human contact in his shack. That really reminds me of the book Jailbird by Kurt Vonnegut. Good old Lincoln, Montana, the only thing they ever made the news for. Although their volleyball team still kick our asses. Other notable serial killer Harvard alum is Ted Cruz, aka the Zodiac Killer, who still walks free. Founder of the tiny house movement, LOL. There's a super good article about Ted's time in prison. Turns out being isolated for most of the day reading books in prison is very similar to being isolated most of the day reading books in a cabin. The MK Ultra'd the shit out of him. I don't mean to endorse any aspect of Ted K's choices in life, but that is some grade A level trolling. I remember the SNL sketch about this. Ted's story makes me sad. So passionate and intelligent, but his actions were so insane. He could have been someone great but chose to be violent instead. You'd think someone who loved the environment so much would see the harm in hurting the innocent. Based and pilled. The punctuation and syntax of this TIL are perfect. If there was an opposite subreddit to /r/title gore, this one would be the top post. Kudos on the good linguistics, op. Hey, Gary, in the 1960s there was a young man that graduated from the University of Michigan. Did some brilliant work in mathematics. Specifically bounded harmonic functions. Then he went on to Berkeley. He was assistant professor. Showed amazing potential. Then he moved to Montana, and blew the competition away. Edit. I have seen this movie 20 times, I only just realized the joke in the last line. I always thought this would have been a funny scene in The Office. Something along the lines of Dwight talking to Jim about the Unabomber and calling him John Krasinski. Then Jim does that look into the camera. Dwight, this is my manifesto, Jim. Much like the Unabomber. What was his name? John Krasinski. Every time someone mentioned the Unabomber, I like to mention that while at Florence camp I spent about 3 weeks working the library at the ADX and would prepare all the magazines and books that were to be distributed to ADX inmates. Ted was a subscriber to People, Shape, and Time. I want to hear him give a TED Talk. So assuming the person who sent out the invites knew who he was. Were they being really nice or really mean by sending the invite despite the fact that he obviously cannot go? Thinking face. No wrong answer. Super curious on your thoughts Reddit. If it turned out they didn't know, that isn't the point, still curious in theory. Psychological study. As a sophomore, Kaczynski participated in a study described by author Alston Chase as a purposely brutalizing psychological experiment led by Harvard psychologist Henry Murray. Subjects were told they would be debating personal philosophy with a fellow student, and were asked to write essays detailing their personal beliefs and aspirations. The essays were turned over to an anonymous attorney, who in a later session would confront and belittle the subject, making vehement, sweeping, and personally abusive attacks, using the content of the essays as ammunition, while electrodes monitored the subject's physiological reactions. These encounters were filmed, and subjects' expressions of anger and rage were later played back to them repeatedly. The experiment lasted 3 years, with someone verbally abusing and humiliating Kaczynski each week. Kaczynski spent 200 hours as part of the study. Kaczynski's lawyers later attributed his hostility towards mind control techniques to his participation in Murray's study. Some sources have suggested that Murray's experiments were part of Project MKUltra, the Central Intelligence Agency's research into mind control. Chase and others have also suggested that this experience may have motivated Kaczynski's criminal activities. His own brother snitched. Fuck. Even the Unabomber has more friends than me. I remember seeing an interview with his mother about how he was put in solid isolation as a small baby/toddler for about a year due to some illness, and when she got him back he was a completely different child. It stayed with me. As a mother she sounded so downtrodden and heartbroken that she didn't protest the doctor's methods of isolation, and basically blamed herself. MKUltra make him go nuts if I remember correctly. Edit, thanks to everyone that gave me the correct info. I had a kooky AF math teacher in my small Texas town who had attended his class at Berkeley and had a book autographed by him. The U.S. government really fucked around and found out with MKUltra. Didn't Harvard fry this poor guy's brain on LSD doing some kind of MKUltra shit? Didn't JIS Manifesto also kinda predict the future? Saturday Night Live did a skit on this with Will Ferrell as Ted. I had a friend who, after graduating from Harvard, spent the summer bike riding back from Boston to California. This was 1989 or so. Anyway, they stopped for lunch between Great Falls and Missoula, and a scruffy fellow noticed their Harvard gear, chatted them up for a while, but was, on reflection, clearly the Unabomber. Chad. Everyone should read his manifesto. Considering its date, he predicted much of society after the internet became widely available. The horrors of Google, Facebook, ad tracking, and amplification of society's divisiveness are discussed. https://m youtube.com/watch v=ycrllvhpw0. We've got to keep in touch. All of you guys be sure to write down your addresses. Ted understands that it's the smiles that get us through. I enjoyed the documentary on Netflix. Didn't SNL do a skit on this? Today I learned about the Unabomber. TIL. The Unabomber went to Harvard, returned to Monkey immediately. This poor bastard was part of the MKUltra program run by the CIA. When he was 16. That part of the story is always conveniently left out when reporting on this monster. He was actually right. Look at the world now. I'm not on board with the whole bombing people thing, but his manifesto should be read by everyone. Terrorist or not, the man makes a lot of very good points, and we can see what he was describing in the future happening right in front of us in the present. Stop reading this nonsense, brothers. We must destroy industrial society. https://www. NBC.com/Saturday Night Live/video/Ted Kaczynski class reunion cold opening/N10841